Today we're going to take a look at this new Aferiy AF-P210 portable power station featuring a 2400 watt pure sine wave inverter, 2048 watt hours of capacity, and this comes in much cheaper than comparable power stations on the market. But does it deliver what it's advertised to do? Let's find out this time on Ham Radio Tube. So let's get you a close-up look at this guy. First off, in the box, which is packaged very well, you're gonna get not only the power station, you're also gonna get a handy zipper bag that's gonna come with a few cables in there. You're gonna get the user manual. You're gonna get a card that says download the app. I would show you the app, but unfortunately you need to create an account. So I'm not trying to do that. I don't think you should have to create an account to see what your battery's doing, but that's just me, and then you get a warranty card. So that's what's in the box. But taking a look at this guy and how it works, I'm actually very impressed with this, and I'm gonna get into a little bit more why later, but we're gonna long press this power button, and that's what's gonna turn it on. We see this nice, beautiful, well-lit screen that's gonna give you all kinds of information just depending on what you're doing with the battery. This screen is very easy to read. You can read this screen clear across the room, no problem at all, very easy. So taking a look, starting at the top left, we've got our DC section. So up here we have a 12 volt, 10 amp socket. So just your standard cigarette lighter socket there. Then we have two 12 volt, 3 amp coaxial connections. And then under this flap, we have a 12 volt, 25 amp XT60. So all kinds of stuff for DC power, and everything has its own button to turn on and off. So for example, right now it's off. If I push that DC, you can see we have the little cigarette icon there, so feel free to smoke them if you got them, I guess. And then you have this little barrel connector icon as well as the XT60. So we know everything's on. As far as voltage from the 12 volt ports, I like what we see here. We should see about 13.2 volts, which is fantastic. I love that. But what I love even more than that, if we can draw your attention right here to all these USB ports. Notice we have only 2 of the legacy USB-A ports. These are QC 3.0, but they give us 4 USB-C PD ports. On the other power stations that I've seen on the market, you're still seeing like 4 USB-A's, and they'll give you only a couple, at best, USB-C PDs. I switched everything over to USB-C years ago. I don't know why manufacturers are still flooding us with USB-A ports. Aferiy is actually doing it right, and they're giving us a bunch of USB-C ports, which is fantastic. So here's the 20 watt port. I'm gonna plug this into my MacBook Air, and we can see, if we watch the readout here, and turn the USB on, now we can see we're pulling 17 watts into my computer. That's great. But what if I want to charge it faster? Well, we have a 100 watt port here, and look at what happens here. Because we have the USB-C PD, it knows how to negotiate the voltage and the power. So now I'm putting 45 watts of power into my MacBook Air, which only came with a 30 watt power brick from Apple. So that's fantastic. 4 USB-Cs. That is my favorite part of this whole thing. They also give us a light here, so if we just push this button, we have a solid light. If we push it again, that's gonna flash in Morse code, SOS. And then if we push it again, it's just a flashing light. One more click and it's off. Now if we take a look on the right-hand side, this is where the AC stuff happens. But we've got 2 fans up here that'll kick on once it gets to a certain temperature. Very quiet fans, I might add, too. They're pretty much a whisper. You don't even really hear them unless it's just dead silent in your house. But look at this. We've got 6 120 volt outlets, and you turn on the inverter just by pushing that button right there. On the other side, we have an overload protection button here, so if something trips, you just push that. And then under this flap, this is our 120 volt AC in for charging, and we also have an XT90 for solar charging. And if we come to the top of the unit, we've got this guy right here. Look at this. They give you a compartment for storing cables. This is the charging cable that comes with it. It comes with this cable for solar charging. Now this did have different types of connectors on there. I cut them off and put Andersons on there. It had the regular MC, whatever they are that you see a lot in the solar. And then I have an extra cable that I made up with an XT60 to Anderson, so I can plug it into the 12 volt XT60 on the front of the thing. So you got storage for your cables right on top. So here's a look at the AC. I've got my multimeter plugged into one of the sockets. We've got 110.7 volts. I've got a heat gun and a vacuum hooked up to this as well. So now here's the heat gun on high power. You can see we're still at 109.5 volts, so we're not getting a lot of voltage drop there. That's good. I would like to see the voltage a little bit higher, but let's kick on the vacuum here. Had a little bit of voltage sag there, but it came back up to 108. We're pulling 2,092 watts, and we can pull this for 45 minutes. That's pretty awesome. Now let's talk charging this. We can charge it one of two ways. We can charge it with the supplied 120 volt cable, and they advertise it to charge in about 2 hours, which in my tests, when I've completely depleted this down to 0 with the 120 volt charging, took about 2.5 hours. So a little bit slower than advertised, but still pretty darn quick. Now, this battery is mostly charged, so we might not see 1100 watts, but 100% this does go up to 1100 watts. And here you can see at this state of charge, it's kind of doing its math there, 33 minutes and this thing will be fully charged with 120 volts. But this can also act as a UPS, or an uninterruptible power supply. So if you have this hooked up to, say, your computer, maybe you're working or something, just as a backup, you've got the 120 volts coming in, it's charging, you have power going through it, and then all of a sudden you have a power outage. Watch this, I'm gonna unplug this. Still keeps going. So it's passing the power through the system, it knows it's charging, so it's just passing that 120 volts to whatever you're charging. And if the power goes out, nothing bad happens. That's freaking awesome. But this also has a built-in charge controller. So I've got a 200 watt solar panel outside right now. I'm gonna plug the XT90 in, and you can see here, we've got our input, that'll start going up. Now we're charging off of solar. I haven't found a way, I don't think you can charge both off of solar and 120 volt at the same time. So you can see we're getting 100 watts in from the solar panel, but if I plug in the 120 volt, you can hear some relays switching, and it looks like it just goes to 120 volts. So I don't think you're gonna get to charge both ways for a faster charge, but still, with the 120 volt charging, you know, 2.5 hours, that's pretty darn quick. Now let's talk specs. What's inside here? They actually tell you the battery specifications. This has 4135 lithium iron phosphate cells inside here. They're 20 amp hour cells. So they look similar to these, but they're a little bit longer and a little bit fatter. So basically what's going on, you have a bunch of lithium iron phosphate cells that are in both series and parallel to give you, they rated at 51.2 volts. I've taken this thing apart, I'll show you in a minute. I got about 54.4 volts, I think, when this was fully charged. So what that means in terms of efficiency, because I've had this for about a month and I've really been using it. I had this plugged up to basically like my whole TV room stuff in my living room. And I was pulling with everything on about 180 watts. So when you look at these numbers, when you look at the output versus the time that you have remaining, when I first plugged it in at 100%, I was pulling 180 watts, it said I had 9 hours left. So if 180 watts times 9 hours gives us 1,620 watt hours at 110 volts, which means that it's 79% efficient at 110 volts with the inverter on. Now, because this doesn't give us hours and minutes, if we say maybe that 9 hours was closer to 10 hours, we'd actually get about 1,800 watt hours, 1,810, which would mean it's 88% efficient with the inverter. If we split that difference, we'd be about 83.9% efficient. So that's not too bad. Somewhere between 79 and 88%. I don't have a good way to test capacity with 120 volt AC. I don't own that test equipment because I mostly deal with DC. I also did a capacity test with the 12 volt socket here using the XT60. I put a 10 amp drain on it, and I pulled 1,768.3 watt hours, meaning at DC, it's 86% efficient. That's a pretty darn good number. And especially when you compare this to the comparable version from EcoFlow, this still comes in at least a couple $100 less. So depending on the sale that EcoFlow's having, when I saw it during the spring sale, it was like $949. I think now it's $999 for the EcoFlow. But the list retail price is like $1,800 for those things. But at the time of filming, on Amazon, this is only $799. But there's also a $120 off coupon right now, all subject to change depending on when you're watching this video, but so much cheaper than the competition, and it packs more and better features in it. But I didn't stop there. I really wanted to debunk this thing, but it's consistently proven me wrong every time I've tested it. And in the middle of that, this happened. Okay, you can't make this up. I'm always harping about having backup battery power because I lose power here all the time. Literally editing a video, my power goes out. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So I grabbed the Aferiy, I unplugged the power strip there from the wall there that has most of this stuff connected to it. And I plugged it in here, and I also plugged in that light. So we're pulling 141 watts. We got 11 hours. Just running there. My router is also powered on because just because you lose power doesn't mean you lose internet. So I've got internet, I've got light, I can still edit, I can still upload this, and I don't have to grab an inverter and hook it up to batteries and things like I can, but literally that was sitting right there. I just grabbed it, moved it over there, and now I have power again. Had I had it hooked up in line, it could have acted as a UPS, and I wouldn't have even had to replug in things. So this is pretty sweet. Real world use in action. And it only took me an hour to remember to plug my refrigerator in. So now I just plugged it in. It's that extension cord there. I'm pulling 275 watts. With all that, I plugged that monitor in too, so I can have two monitors. But I can still get 5 hours at least out of this thing. But once the compressor for the refrigerator turns off, we'll get even more longevity out of this. So that's pretty sweet. And if it were sunny, I could hook solar up to it. So now I'm definitely a believer in this thing after just really, like, I'm usually a give me a battery and I'll hook an inverter up to it kind of guy. But this thing is just so convenient to have. And it's built well. Let me crack the top and I'm gonna show you what's inside this thing. And that's what she looks like. So we've got fans over here for cooling. We've got a fan here. There's another fan underneath this board that I've heard. Everything is wired really well. We can take a look down there. That red wire right there, these two terminals are like the main battery output. They're using 8-gauge wire on there, which is great. That's pretty much what I've looked online. That's the wire you want to use, so that's great. Everything just looks good. They've got silicone all over the place just to keep things from being jostled around. More fans over there for cooling. It's just a really well-made unit. I've tried to find something I don't like about this, and really the only thing that I found, I believe that is like aluminum wire. I don't think it's pure copper wire. Which that's kind of the only thing that I've found that I don't really like about it. It's like the silicone jacketed wire. So I would prefer copper, but even for aluminum wire, 8-gauge for what this is rated at a 54-volt thing, boosting it up to 110 volts, bucking it down to 13.2 volts, like everything in here is correct. So very, very impressed. The only thing I couldn't test, you can see kind of that green, those are the battery cells. Maybe you can see them a little better back there. It's kind of hard to get on camera, but they are cylindrical cells, but I can't get down there enough. I can't open the bottom because there's latches down there that are really preventing me from taking it apart from the bottom. I'd really like to see if the cells are all the same lot and the same date and everything, and if they're actually the like grade A EV cells that they're advertised as, but I can't take this apart without completely damaging it, and I really don't want to damage this thing. So I'm gonna take them for their word, but Yeah, I mean, you can see there's that little green, that's the cell. So there's a bunch of those 20 amp hour cells in series and in parallel to get to the 50 volts there. And just to show you, I'm going to connect my meter to the positive and negative of the BMS. And we're only at 89% charge, but 53.1 volts. I mean, this is a 50 volt system. It's everything it is advertised to do. And it's RF quiet. I have not seen any RFI from this device on my ham radios. So right now I have my 705 plugged in. There's no battery. It is just coming off of the DC port there. It's clean. Whether I'm charging this with solar or with 120 volts, no RFI. If I'm pulling a load from 120 volts off of this thing, no RFI. It is clean. I cannot find a single thing about this that I don't like. It just works. It does what is advertised to do. And I'm very, very impressed with this, especially the price point. I can't emphasize that enough. This is so much cheaper than the competition. And in my opinion, it has better features and does the exact same thing. So I am a fan of this thing. This definitely gets the ham radio tube seal of approval. Hands down 100%. I like it. Aferiy, however you say your name, good job. You did everything right. So that's my review of this power station. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick one of these up. And until next time, thanks for watching Ham Radio Tube. We'll see you next time. 73.